Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That was me 20 years ago. This is me now. And this picture sums it up really about coming to England to work as a nurse. I don't think I need to talk about appreciation of coming to a new country for better life. My name is Raj. I like my toast very well done. And I like to iron my shirts. Your ideas would be better. I'm also a first generation Indian immigrant, an economic migrant to the UK. I was recruited to come to England in 2002 to work as a nurse. I want to share with you an interesting fact of life in Mumbai. You see, it's difficult and expensive to look stylish in a hot country. The life of a white shirt in Mumbai entirely depends on the mode of transport. So, in order to maintain your makeup, hairstyle, and looks, you have to carry yourself like a vaccine by maintaining a cold chain. So, if you took a local train at peak time in Mumbai, the life of a white shirt is 5 minutes. If you took a bus, you will have 30 minutes. If you're really lucky, perhaps an hour. If you took a taxi, you will have 3 hours. If you took an air-conditioned taxi, you will have 5. Well, by the time you can afford to sit in an air-conditioned taxi, you don't care what you look like. You already earned the money. So, the number of interviews which I had to attend to come to England, I always struggled to keep good appearance. I used to wear a dark t-shirt and carry my white shirt in a plastic bag in my hand. But this presented a problem. The interviews for the NHS were always in India were held in 5-star hotels like the Taj or Leela. Now, when you turn up at the door of a 5-star hotel in a t-shirt, the guard takes one look at you. Get out of here! Appearance is everything in Mumbai. You got to look the part. Unless you're very wealthy, then the rules don't apply. So, the only option that was left, which I took several times, was to go to the back of the 5-star hotel and ask to use the servants' and waiters' toilet to change into my white shirt. Now, when I turned up at the main door, the guard looked at my white shirt, did his automatic calculation that I must have the money and the means to maintain the cold chain to keep my white shirt looking so crisp. And he saluted me. And he even opened the door for me. I want to now tell you how England was sold to us. I was one amongst these 30 Indian nurses sitting in that recruitment office in Bombay in 2001. I knew I was up against very talented people with the tenacity and will to fight. My mind was occupied by just one thought. How can I make sure I get my next meal? I knew what hunger was by then. People in the West use the term very lightly. I have often heard people saying, I'm starving. No. I don't think many people in the West know what real hunger is. Real hunger is when you feel like your stomach is eating itself. Every other thought, when you're not thinking of sex, you're thinking of food. Pretty primal. So, the recruitment agent started his pitch by saying, do you know where England is? Some nurses raised their hands. Others looked totally blank, as if he had asked if you had ever seen an unicorn. I only half raised my hand. I had heard of England, but I did not know where on the world map it was. Well, says the agent, England is a country where you don't die. That caught our attention straight away. I immediately thought, I can live beyond 35 years of age if I make it to England. Then the agent said, Even if you want to die, the healthcare system in England, called the NHS, won't let you die. Who wants to go there? And all of us raised our hands in unison. Life is cheap in Bombay. 1 million people live in a square mile. The average life expectancy is 65 years of age. And over 4,000 people die every year falling off local trains. I personally lost 7 of my friends who died falling off local trains. In the daytime, I used to work in a super specialty hospital as in charge of endoscopy department. In the night, I used to live in a railway quarter, which was just a notch above slum living. For 4 years, the only place I had access to was 6 feet by 3 feet. My mother said, become a nurse, because with those skills, you will be truly able to care for another human being. But she said, most importantly, you will manage to eat no matter where you are in the world. I should now tell you why I thought I could not live past 35 years of age. You see, regular commuters who are between the age of 30 and 40 often die falling off local trains. This is simply because after 35, they put on a little bit of weight and their bodies becomes heavy for their arms. I have been living in rural Dorset for last 18 years. Bonus years of my life, 8 years as of today, and still counting. I have a delightful, very English wife, and I've got 2 lovely kids. I spend my Sundays going to a car boot sale and and appreciating the fact that I'm alive. And will carry on appreciating life. Water in tap and a full stomach. Every day until I die. I even appreciate the local newspaper headline of rural Devon. It's a no-brainer, really. Where would you live? Mumbai or England? I want to talk about appreciating being alive today and why a sense of gratitude is key to well-being, as well as why the NHS is an incredible organization to work for. I have seen people give themselves a hard time and complain about bad weather, traffic. I have seen people feel guilty for not doing 10,000 steps a day or eating a big piece of cake on Monday morning's team meeting. So when I first arrived in Manchester, finally, at the first opportunity, I went to local supermarket Asda. I dressed smart to buy myself biscuits. To celebrate finally making in life. I walked down the biscuit aisle. I saw this packet of biscuit, which I really liked the look of. But my heart sank. The price was 95 pence. I multiplied that into rupees and worked out that it was nearly 100 rupees. The packet of biscuits I used to buy in Mumbai was 5 rupees. So I went down another aisle looking for bargain biscuits, much to my wishful thinking. To my delight, I saw this bag of 5 kg biscuits at fraction of the cost compared to the small packet. With much pride in grabbing myself a bargain, I went to the checkout. The young shop assistant was being friendly and said, "What dog have you got, sir?" I will now tell you the first taste of what equality meant to me when I first arrived in this country, which I really appreciated. I was working in endoscopy unit. After a gastroscopy procedure, I had to move a patient from the recovery room back to the ward. Now, I did not know how to allocate a porter to move the patient back to the ward. The procedure was, you ring the porter's office, you politely inform them there is a patient to be moved to the back of the ward. Then the porters will allocate someone to collect the patient. As it happens, there was another porter who just arrived in the department to drop off another patient. I was standing on the other end of the department when I saw the porter on the other end of the department and I shouted, Oi, porter, take this patient back to the ward. The look of shock and jaw-dropping reaction from my manager and my colleagues is unforgettable. My manager at the time hurriedly took me to another room and said, Raj, you cannot speak to anyone like that. I said, I don't understand. What did I say wrong? Besides, he's just a porter. That shocked my manager even more. She did her best to explain to me that we treat everyone equally in this country, and nobody is supposed to speak to anyone like that. Now, it was my turn to be shocked. Because in all my previous experience as a nurse, I was only treated with utter disrespect by doctors. Actually, anyone with a little bit of power treats someone less powerful with zero respect. So we lowly nurses passed on the bad behavior to the porters, and so it went on. Perhaps they picked on the kitchen staff or the cleaners. Having said that, India is changing slowly. I will now tell you how communication is done kindly in the NHS. Every Indian foreign nurse had to write an adaptation program. The biggest part of adaptation program is writing reflections. Now, nursing training in India is very hands-on. Although there are elements of reflections, it's nowhere near as in-depth as it is here. So I wrote my reflections, which I now know was complete garbage compared to what was expected from a trained nurse, and I showed it to my mentor. My mentor read my reflections, and she looked really worried. Then in a very gentle manner, she said, "Oh, Raj, I'm a bit concerned about what you have written." I responded very pleased. I said, "Thank you very much." And I hurriedly took the paper for submission. I did not understand why my mentor looked worried, but I went ahead anyway. I submitted my reflections, and of course, I failed. I could not believe it. I was shocked. I went back to my mentor. I said, "I failed." My mentor said, "Well, Raj, I'm sorry the outcome is poor, but I did warn you." I said, "When?" She said, "Well, I did say I was concerned." I said, "What is a concern? What's that supposed to mean?" And I think at that point, the penny dropped for my mentor. And instead of giving feedback on my poor writing, my mentor said, "Raj, what feedback were you expecting?" I said, "Well, I was expecting you to say, what you have written is complete garbage and it's useless, and I want you to rewrite it again." And I would have quite happily responded, "Thank you very much." And, and I would have written the whole reflection again. That is the kind of communication I was used to in Mumbai and during my training in rural India. I appreciated my mentor's kindness then, and I appreciate the kindness culture of this country. You see, Indians, at least first generation Indians who are not anglicized, understand and appreciate direct communication. Let me tell you a story from when I was working as a diabetic link nurse in Manchester. My English nurse colleague and I went to see Mrs. Sharma because her blood sugar and blood cholesterol level was very high and she was at risk of developing complications. We sat down in Mrs. Sharma's house and my colleague started off by saying, "Well, Mrs. Sharma, we are a bit concerned about your high sugar and cholesterol level, and we would like you to perhaps quit or cut down significantly your sugar intake." Just like when my mentor was giving feedback on my reflection, I could see and sense what was going on in Mrs. Sharma's head was, "Actually, I am fine. There is nothing to worry about. They are not saying anything serious or seriously to me." At that point, I requested my colleague to allow me an opportunity to talk to Mrs. Sharma. I knew Mrs. Sharma was first generation migrant and would appreciate direct communication. Taking over the discussion, I said, "Mrs. Sharma, if you don't quit eating sugar, you will die. Mrs. Sharma looked at me with interest and said, "Thank you very much. I can see what you're saying. I will definitely cut down on sugar." I want to now tell you my final story. We Indian nurses, while in Mumbai, were told that England is the most polite country in the world. You can never be too polite in England. Much to my dismay, when I arrived here, I found my English colleagues to be very rude. Bear me with this one. While I was still new, I used to often walk into office during lunchtime and everyone was eating their sandwiches and lunches. But nobody offered me food. I was shocked. I felt so rejected and cut off. You see, the part and class of India I come from, if you were to walk in or visit someone while they were eating, they will offer you food, no matter what else is happening. But here's the difference. They will expect you to sit down and eat with them. And they would be offended if you didn't sit down and eat with them. Over time, I have learned how this culture is and how things work. However, there is a weird exception to this rule. Some bizarre phenomena happens when it snows in England. There is almost a mass hysteria. Despite a forecast for just one day snow, people go crazy and they buy everything off the supermarket shelves, including cling film and cat food. It feels like the country is going to war. But most importantly, when it does snow, people look out for each other. Even random strangers help random strangers. The real strength of the English community is evident when it snows. And I feel glad and appreciate that the true community spirit is alive and kicking underneath the stiff upper lip of English culture. But it does take a dramatic event like snow to nudge people off autopilot and look out for each other. Sometimes I think, in these modern times, the English have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. But I do feel, underneath it all, the English share the same community values as the people in East. I really appreciate that. I want to end by sharing one of the most memorable conversations I had with my mother about the NHS while I was working as a district nurse. My mother said, "So, you drive to patients' houses, you dress their wounds, and you don't charge them any money." "Yes," I said. She said, "I can't believe it. So it's all free." I said, "Yes, it's free at the point of care, but we have a robust tax system which helps run the NHS." She inched a bit closer and said, "Do you take any money from the patient under the table?" I said, "Mother, it's England. It does not work like that here. It's not India." In India, the only thing we can rely on if we are vulnerable and if we are in real need is the other people. In England, we have the NHS, and I deeply appreciate that. The point is, you cannot feel bad and appreciate at the same time. We all have a choice. Let's start feeling good right now by appreciating the things we are surrounded by in this very moment. If I'm having a really, really bad day, and if I can't find anything to appreciate, I appreciate being alive. Because when you're alive, possibilities are endless. Thank you.